But the next topic, this topic also relates to Ukraine, and I just could hardly wait. Sometimes I'm getting ready for the show, literally quite often, 2 hours ahead of the show, I'm still debating which stories can I get to and cover. I could not wait to get and talk with you about this unraveling of the Ukraine mess. We have in Washington right now, we have the Democrat Party claiming impeachment is justified. Impeachment of the president is justified because of a phone call with Zelensky in which Trump has released a transcript. Trump has also today had the whistleblower complaint released to the public. The whistleblower thing is out there. The transcript of the call is out there. Trump's not hiding a thing. He's going after the corruption of the Democrats, but you still have this impeachment inquiry and the Democrats just huffing and just, all puffed up, sure of themselves with the media right along with them, or maybe it's the media leading them. You never really can tell with them. Talking about the idea that somehow this conversation that Trump had with Zelensky is grounds for impeachment. I want to talk about, when I say unraveling Ukraine, I'm going to tell you some real, honest to goodness things I haven't talked about in the show before about the connections between the Ukraine and the Democrat Party in the 2016 elections. Before I get to that, I want to play one other clip. There's a Republican, a member of Congress, Liz Cheney, and she spoke to the press yesterday right after a meeting between the Democrat-Republican caucuses talking about this impeachment thing. I love what she said. She is so darn tough. So if Matt, if we have that ready, I want to play Liz Cheney saying her thing to the press yesterday in Washington. Looks like we made it.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here this morning. We have just come from our conference and really focused on the discussion about what the Speaker of the House and the House Democrats did yesterday. And, we have watched now, ever since President Trump was elected, the House Democrats have been careening from impeachment theory to impeachment theory. They've careened from target to target. For a while, 10 days or so ago, they were focused on impeaching Justice Kavanaugh. Now they're back to focusing on President Trump. But what we see repeatedly is a complete lack of focus on, concern about evidence and facts. And what Speaker Pelosi did yesterday really was the worst we've seen yet, where she announced an impeachment inquiry without any evidence, without seeing the transcript of the phone call at issue, without seeing any details from the supposed whistleblower. And when you think about what that does, both from the perspective of our constitutional obligation and from the perspective of our national security, it ought to give every American grave concerns that they are dealing with this in a way that is absolutely such a flagrant disregard of their constitutional responsibility.
Okay, I love her. She is so tough. She is so strong. She has that her father's quality about him. She's the daughter of a former Vice President Dick Cheney. That when he speaks, it's serious, it's substantive, it comes from a place of knowledge, not just of factual knowledge, but of core conviction about the importance of truth, the importance of America. I just love when she speaks. I've actually met her once. She's fabulous. But what she's talking about is the Democrats in Washington willing to, now, as I pointed out yesterday, they're not really moving for impeachment. They don't dare hold a vote on the floor of the House. They don't have enough Democrats willing to go public to say they support impeachment, but they're just building up the lather of their base to whom they've been promising impeachment since before President Trump was sworn in, since the time he won the election. But this impeachment fervor has jumped in the Democrat Party, as Liz Cheney was pointing out, from one issue to the next, always somehow trying to claim, we really have the possibility of impeachment here. We can impeach this guy. And they're looking for something. There's nothing, the Trump-Russia collusion hoax. It took us, 2.5 years to get through, millions of dollars, nothing there. They just go on and on. So here they are, the Ukrainian thing. But I want to hit these things, I believe facts you either may not know or I want to embellish on the significance of them. Number one, the Ukrainian involvement in the 2016 elections. Leave aside all the corruption with Biden and his son. We've talked about that before. In 2016, Politico, the left-leaning rag, online rag, the very, very left-leaning Politico, ran a story talking about a meeting in the Washington, D.C. Ukrainian embassy between the Democrat National Committee and a Ukrainian American operative. And it got kind of ignored at the time. It was like, oh, what are they even talking about? Ukraine is not, that we don't have anything to worry about with that. So it got kind of ignored. But let me describe what they were talking about. This is from Politico, who I'm sure wishes they never reported this. They have a story, this is from 2016, that they acknowledge, and if it's coming from them, they didn't mean to hurt the Democrats with it. Ukrainian government officials tried to help Hillary Clinton, their words, Ukrainian government officials tried to help Hillary Clinton and undermine Trump by publicly questioning his fitness for office. They also disseminated documents implicating a top Trump aide in corruption and suggested they were investigating the matter, only to back away after the election. And they helped Clinton's allies research damaging information on Trump and his advisors. A Politico investigation found a Ukrainian American operative who was consulting with the Democrat National Committee met with top officials in the Ukrainian embassy in Washington in an effort to expose ties between Trump, top campaign aide Paul Manafort, and Russia, according to people with direct knowledge of the situation. So Hillary's trying to use Ukrainians back in 2016 to undermine Trump's campaign. The Democrats today are saying Trump should be impeached for a president-to-president phone call in which he's urging Zelensky to again look into the corruption involving Biden, and not just the corruption of Biden and his son, but Biden, who's on tape acknowledging, as Trump was just pointing out at the clip we saw, Biden acknowledging, yeah, I twisted their arm. I said, we're withholding $1 billion in aid unless you fire this prosecutor who's looking into my son's company. And that is front and center for America to see, which is why I get the conclusion Nancy Pelosi and the Dems have decided Biden's got to get out of this campaign. He's just, he's floundering. I don't wish dementia or diminished mental capacity on anyone, but President Biden, or Vice President Biden, is not functioning well on the campaign trail. He's struggling to remember facts. He's recounting things that never happened, that are provably false. So he's struggling. And besides, they didn't want an old white guy. Anyway, they want him out. This is the way to get him out. Okay, but my first point about the Ukrainians and the Democrats, the Politico left-wing news site reported this, that Hillary's team, the DNC, met with the Ukrainians in Washington to talk about how they could help tube Trump. Just think about, we just had a whole Russian investigation into Trump-Russia collusion over nothing, over a farce, over a falsity. But here's Hillary and the Dems going after Ukrainians, trying to get their help. They actually had Ukrainian efforts had an impact on the race, helping to force Manafort's resignation and advancing the narrative that Trump's campaign was deeply connected to Ukraine's foe in the East, Russia. So, first piece of the connection, the real Ukrainian unraveling, Ukraine and the Democrats. Second one, there is a guy running around Washington giving interviews, a Ukrainian. His name is Serhiy Lyshenko. Serhiy Lyshenko is an ex-advisor to Ukrainian President Zelensky, the current President Zelensky. This guy Lyshenko was quoted, in fact, I've got to tell you, that this Joe Scarborough, you know who that is, he's at Joe NBC, had tweeted out that Lyshenko is saying that Trump conditioned his willingness to have a phone call with Zelensky of the Ukraine on Zelensky's willingness to talk about the Biden matter. So he's asserting that he knows this, that, Trump wasn't willing to talk to Zelensky unless he could raise the Biden matter. He goes on to say that the Biden he also had an interview with ABC. The Biden investigation was encouraged, actually, during this call, which you already know. Okay, so I want to mention who this Lyshenko character is. He's being propped up as he's another guy. He's exposing Trump-Ukraine collusion. He's exposing, Trump doing something terrible, having this conversation with Zelensky. Lyshenko was heavily involved in the Democrat Party's opposition research efforts into former Trump's campaign, into Paul Manafort. So Lyshenko, who's now trying to parade himself as an advocate for truth and justice, So he's interviewed on all these media shows, taking the position. He's got the high ground. He's a Zelensky person. He is just, really offended by the idea that you had Trump and Zelensky actually discussing whether or not the Ukrainians should look into Biden again. Lyshenko is up to his neck from 2016 in the effort to help the DNC and Hillary tube Trump's nomination. Same guy. In fact, his involvement was so bad that he ended up, in fact, he was the one at a press conference in the summer of 2016 to highlight the ledger. Remember the black ledger thing that got Manafort in so much trouble? He was the one in that press conference. And he said in the press conference, I believe and understand the basis of these payments are totally against the law. Lyshenko, so far into it in helping Hillary Clinton in 2016, a Ukrainian government official helping Hillary in 2016, that he was prosecuted in the Ukraine. Lyshenko was criminally prosecuted and December of 2018 found guilty in the country of Ukraine of it was called, the description of what his wrongdoing was, that he ended up, I got the right page here. Yeah, it was that he unlawfully participated in interfering with the 2016 American elections. So Lyshenko, being propped up as the truth and justice guy by the left and trying to expose how wrong it is that Trump had a call with Zelensky and said, hey, look into Biden. This Zelensky guy, December 2018, a court in Kyiv, a city in Ukraine, found that Lyshenko's release of the black ledger led to interference in the electoral process of the United States in 2016 and harmed the interests of Ukraine as a state. So a guy convicted in the Ukraine of interfering in the 2016 elections to help Hillary and the Dems is now the poster boy for standing up about corruption if Trump dares to talk with Zelensky. Last piece in this kind of unraveling Ukraine is that now it turns out that here in America, the U.S. Attorney, John Durham, the one who is helping William Barr in a variety of ways, U.S. Attorney John Durham is now looking into the Ukrainian involvement in 2016. So the Dems' determination to raise this issue, to go for impeachment of Trump over a phone call with his counterpart in the Ukraine, despite all of the genuine, true corruption, controversy, deception, call it what you want, between Biden and the Ukraine and Hillary and the Ukraine. All of that is supposed to be the way the Dems treat anything the Dems have done that was wrong or questionable. It must never be discussed again. It's to be dismissed. It's to be laughed at. It's to be ignored. But Trump has one phone call, and man, he's up for impeachment. I'm telling you, I think that number one, let me finish on Durham. Durham is doing an investigation. He actually announced he's investigating whether the Ukraine was involved in any of the 2016 election efforts. Seems like all he's got to do is call the court in Ukraine who convicted Lyshenko to figure out that question. But the larger point is this. You are seeing hypocrisy and audacity on steroids in the Democrat Party in Washington today. You are seeing them talking about impeaching the president. They've been using impeach Trump over everything, but their flavor of the week is impeach him over a phone call with Zelensky, when all of this other genuine, provable, undoubtable, no one is questioning actual corruption and collusion between the Ukrainians and the Democrat side is right in front of them to see, but that doesn't matter. No, nothing to see here, folks. Move on from that. All we're going to talk about is one phone call between Trump and Zelensky. I think that, number one, to wrap up this segment, number one, Nancy Pelosi and the Dems want Biden out. All the attention on the Ukraine is going to cause conservative pundits, conservative Americans, news sources to have to report, well, there was all this that Biden did, and there was all this that Hillary and the DNC did in 2016, and pretty soon the Democrats are going to have egg on their face. But they're kind of okay with that. They can get Biden out and they can placate their base. They've been promising that they will somehow move to get Trump out of office. And there was a Democrat congressman from Texas, Al Green, who said in one of the many news conferences about, impeaching Trump, basically said, we got to get him out now or else we face him in 2020. They want Trump out because they don't have anyone on their side who can beat him, and they know it. This is what I think is really, it's just astonishingly foolhardy, because, once you're, 10 miles out of the Washington, D.C. bubble, the average Joe American is saying, you're talking about corruption of Trump with a call with Zelensky, who's all the call said was, you ought to figure out what happened. Trump is exposing corruption, not engaging in it. And I think most of America is going to figure that out very, very soon.